Hi, I'm Nicole Dyer, and this is an excerpt from the Research Like a Pro office hours. Today we're talking about genealogy credentials, accreditation, and certification. Diana, my mom, has become an accredited genealogist, and I am working towards certification. So we discussed the pros and cons and differences of each of these credentialing bodies. What are the pros and cons of accreditation versus certification? So Diana is accredited and I'm getting certified. So um, we're going to now talk about why we chose the credential that we did. This should be fun. So a while ago, we wrote an article for Family Tree magazine about this topic. So if you have the chance to go read that, that would probably help answer a lot of your questions as far as the differences between the two. And then for our personal preferences and things, we'll just talk to that right now. But it was in the printed magazine, but I believe it's also on their website. I should have got the link for you. Okay, so go ahead, Mom. Oh, you're muted.
I unmuted and then muted again. All right, so accreditation appealed to me because of this idea of focusing on a region or specialty, and I really wanted to become a better Southern researcher. And so at the time that I did it, there was a region called the Gulf South region. It took in 7 states: Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. And so I had some experience in most of those, but there were a couple I had not done a lot in, and I had to learn those states. But that's where a lot of my tough brick walls and ancestors were. So this idea of really becoming an expert in all those states was very appealing to me. It is testing based. And so, you have to get over your fear of testing and realize you can do it if you prepare. It's okay. It was historically part of the Genealogical Society of Utah's Research Bureau. And it started in 1964. And then when they wanted to split that off from um, the society, things changed in 2000 and they came up with a name which is kind of long, which is why we always call it ICAP Gen, but the full title is the International Commission for the Accreditation of Professional Genealogists. And we say international there because we do test for regions all over the world and are continually adding new regions, specifically in South America and Eastern Europe right now. So it does have a focus on client research. It teaches you just exactly what we've been learning in Research Like a Pro, how to form an objective, do the background work, study the locality, do the research, and write a report. That's really where I learned the whole research process was from accreditation. One of the things that also appealed to me was this idea that you don't have to start over from scratch. So if I submitted my 4-generation report and it didn't pass, to pass it has to be 90%, then I could fix it up and resubmit. And the same with any of the levels of testing. If you fail, you can learn, because we always learn by failure or not passing, and try again and perhaps pass the second or third time. So I really love the idea of having that leeway to just try again and have it be a learning educational experience. So it is made up with the 4-generation report is level 1. So you write up your report, turn that in. If you pass that, then you can take the level 2 test. And level 2 is all about your region. So that's where you get to study everything you can. It's based on those states, those different entities within your region. If you're Canada, then you'll have provinces. Each country's kind of got different jurisdictions, but in the US, it's county or states. And if you pass that, then you take level 3, which is like a little mini project. You have 4 hours to create the objective. They give you a problem, and then you have to do the research and write a report. And it's like a little mini client project. And if you pass that, then you do an oral review and you just get to defend your answers or answer any questions that the reviewers might be asking. So you can have peer review on level 1. You can give it to as many people as you want and have them look at it and tell you what you need to fix up. help you make it better. Level 2, it's all about you. It's just you and the test, but you can use all your notes. And so it's not like you have to remember everything. You just want to be able to find things quickly and be able to work through the test in the right amount of time. And then level 3 is also open note. So you get to use all your notes about how to research in an area, or if you have a locality guide, you can use that for sources. And it's not peer reviewed, it's all on you. So that's why we allow peer review in level 1, because by level 3, you should be able to do this work without having anybody help you. So that, in a nutshell, is how accreditation works.
I love that it builds and you can start with peer review and then it gets a little harder with no help. And then the final one is just all yourself.
Right. And you have time in between to prepare. So I was working on locality guides for the testing as I was doing my level 1. But once I finished that report, then I really hit hard the study. And then once I passed that, then I really practiced a lot for level 3. So you can take it in steps, which is really, really helpful.
Great. And I see that, Monique, thank you for putting the link to our article in the chat. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, great.
All right. And we did have a podcast guest who did talk about choosing certification over accreditation. So now I'll talk a little bit about, the differences and why you might choose one or the other. So, and why I chose to pursue certification because I had originally started working on accreditation and then the region I chose got split into two regions and half of my work was in one region and half was in the other. So I was like, well, which region do I want to do now? And at the same time, I thought it might be interesting for our business to have one of each of us. So then I started working on certification. And I had been drawn to certification the first time I learned about it, which was during Roots Tech. I had noticed some of the presenters had CG after their name and some had AG. And so I looked it up and I was reading through the BCG website and thought it sounded really cool. And it's portfolio based instead of testing based. And you submit a portfolio with 4 work samples. And um, so accreditation has kind of been based in Utah, even though it's international. And my perception, I don't know if this is actually true, but my perception is that the BCG is kind of more on the East Coast. Their mailing address is in Washington, D.C. So I thought that was interesting too. One thing that's challenging about certification is that if your portfolio does not pass, you cannot use any of those 4 work samples again. You have to start over from scratch because you've received feedback. And that's one of the big challenges of the portfolio is that you are not supposed to have any feedback, no editing of any of your work samples. So you have to do it all yourself. And one of the things that's different about certification is that they have more of a focus on academic writing, writing for journals, case studies. A case study is one of the big work samples that you need to do, and it's quite different from writing a client report. And I'm not saying one is better than the other, they're just different styles of writing. And so with certification, they do have a heavy focus on that element. And so if your goal is to become more proficient at academic writing or journal articles, then this might be the path for you. If your focus is more on client research, then accreditation is probably a better path. The portfolio for certification does require that you do a research report for another person as one of the elements. In addition to the case study, the kinship determination, and the document work. BCG has published an application guide that tells you how to do each thing and rubrics that you can review, which are really helpful as you're preparing the portfolio to understand how it will be judged by really thoroughly understanding these rubrics and studying the standards manual. So Genealogy Standards is published by BCG and it's used to judge the portfolios, but also to encourage the whole genealogy community to follow these standards. So, like I mentioned, these are the four portfolio elements. There's also a few other things like a thing that you sign about having ethics or something. And so, with certification, the work samples that you choose are intended to showcase your skills on challenging cases. So, it can take people quite a while to finish all of the work samples. There are a lot of people who are on the clock for certification because once you submit your application, they give you 1 year. They give you a document for your document work, and then they give you 1 year to submit. And if you don't, then you need to renew. And during that time, you do receive the BCG newsletter, which is called On Board, which has some helpful things, and you're part of their action list, which is in the email list where you can ask questions. And everyone who sends in a question, it goes to everybody on the list, and then you can see all the responses. So, and I renewed once, so I've been on the clock for about a year and a half. I have chosen all my work samples and have started working on all of them. And I'm like 90% done with my report and 75% done with my document work. And I would say I'm only about 10% of the way on the case study and 15% of the way on the kinship determination. So I have a lot of writing to do on those and even some more research to do on those two. But I'm hoping to be finished by May, which is my deadline. But if not, I'll just renew again and then hopefully finish within 2 or 3 years. So, one thing that I heard recently in the action list, so this isn't private information, but the BCG is going to start a new way of submitting portfolios. And they're going to do like a beta test on this, but they want to make it a little bit easier for people because of this issue of if you have to start over from scratch on all four of these elements, it's really hard. So they're going to do a two-step process where you can submit 2 work samples, get your judge's feedback. If you pass that, then you can go on to the next and submit 2 more work samples. So that will be kind of similar to the different levels that ICAP Gen does to kind of make it a little bit easier for people to get going and to get some traction instead of just feeling like you can never submit until you have all of these done and perfect. So that's an exciting new development from BCG that they're working on.
Yeah, I agree. That is brilliant. I think that would be so helpful. So we do have a question from Robin. What is the time frame for each type?
After you submit your application to BCG, you have 12 months to submit your portfolio. And then if you don't finish in 12 months, you can renew for another 12 months.
And for ICAP Gen, for that level 1, you have, we just really recommend that you don't pay your fees until you're ready to submit, because some people will pay their fees and then a year later they still haven't submitted, then they have to pay again. So there's no reason to pay your fees until you're ready to submit. And then, so one of the things I don't think we mentioned that kind of speaks to this as well is the whole idea of renewal. So once you do get your credential for both of these organizations, every 5 years you have to do a renewal and you have to submit another, nothing as rigorous as the first. For ICAP Gen, you just submit a report of no more than 8 to 10 pages. So it's not as hard. And you have to also show continuing development, education, and also some volunteer hours. So for BCG, I believe you submit another case study. I don't know, Nicole, what is the renewal for that?
Yeah, it has to be something that meets the genealogical proof standard. So, for example, the research report for another person, this does not have to meet the genealogical proof standard. You don't have to come to the conclusion and prove it. But your case study and your kinship determination, those should meet the genealogical proof standard and have conclusions. And so when you renew, you have to submit something like that. It can be another KDP, it can be another case study, but it has to be something that meets the GPS.
Nice. And then another question, is the portfolio consisted of just those items in bullet 6?
Yeah, with a couple other things, like you have to sign the genealogist code of ethics, And there's another thing. It's a kind of like a resume. I think it's called development activities. And you have to list all the things you did to prepare for certification, classes you took, and how it helped you. And you don't have to list everything you did, but summarize it.
And I think that's what they want to look at when, they get this new thing approved, that they want to look at your education before you go to all this work to do all your writing to make sure you're kind of at the right place. This is my guess. I have no idea.
Well, what they do is the judges will look at the education you've done, especially if the portfolio is on the edge of being approved. So sometimes if the judges don't agree, it will go to a fourth judge. And the fourth judge is usually a more experienced judge, and they have to decide if they're going to pass it or not. And so sometimes they'll look at that development activities. And if you've done a lot of like institutes and you've really tried to do a lot of the suggested education, then sometimes they'll pass just because you've shown that you're willing to do the education. And they'll give you like some, they always, with every portfolio, the judges give you ideas for how to get better. So sometimes they'll say you need to do more work in this area or that area. And we passed you because it looks like you've done a lot of, education. So you have a good background. You just need to strengthen these skills or whatnot.
Right. Okay, so Nancy's got a question here about accreditation testing. No, we are now testing that on site. So you do pay an extra fee for that, but we'll find a library or some repository where you can go and take the test. You have to have a proctor that is with you the whole time you test, whether you're at the family history library or wherever you live. And then the proctor does the timing and, just is right there with you. So yeah,
Nice.
now you can take it wherever you live.
Who are the proctors?
They figure that out. If you're at the library, I was a proctor once. A lot of times it's people that are interested in accreditation who want a proctor to just get an idea of what it's like, what the testing's like. But if you're at a library, say they would just, that's probably part of the fee to pay a librarian to sit there and be a proctor for you.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. So another comment in the podcast, your guest said that most people don't pass BCG if they haven't done some institute work.
Yeah, there's been a few different things come out about that in the action list. So periodically, Angela McGee will send out some interesting statistics about, people pass if they do this or that. And so one thing they found is that people who've done extended genealogical education have a better chance of succeeding. So if they've done like the Boston University course or institutes and that kind of thing, then they have a much higher chance of passing. So it's really recommended.